Welcome back to another Tarisland video. I've filmed a podcast style discussion about the game with 888. I'll leave all of his channel links and stuff in the description down below. And we've cut it up into like little different sections to make various different videos as we talk about all the different parts of the game that we enjoy so far or don't enjoy, or things we want to see improved, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, let us know what you think in the comment section down below if you like this style of content, almost like a mini podcast style. Yeah, comment section down below for all that kind of stuff. If you like the kind of content that we're talking about as well, or even if you massively disagree, feel free to drop a like on the video, subs, all that kind of stuff, and we'll keep making more content. Yeah, if you want to carry on the discussion further as well about Tarisland and watch me play the game live, I stream over on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday around about 5 or 6 p.m. BST UK time.
Dungeons, raids, arcane content.
Yeah, I think yeah, when it comes to dungeons, raids, the arcane realm or the arcane floors, you've also got the universal hall as well if you want to piece this in. I'm a massive fan. Like this is my favorite content in any MMO. Sure, there's PvP, there's the open world exploring, which I love as well. There's, you know, doing whatever you do with your class, you know, specifically trying to build stuff. But when it comes to my most enjoyment, I'm not too sure about yours, but PvE is definitely my favorite. And then like group content. There's a game I played recently, Last Epoch. A little bit different. It's an ARPG, but basically once you get to end game, you can group up for that game's version of like dungeons, if you like, small dungeons, micro dungeons. But it's not needed. You just solo everything. There wasn't much group content in that game, and it got to a point after like a week of being in game, I was like, you know what, I've lost the fun. I don't really want to play this game anymore. Whereas with Tarisland, it's like everything's group content. Do you know what I mean? The world bosses are group content, the raids obviously are, the arcane floors, universal hall is obviously solo, but that's just something to do in your own downtime. And then there's just like a ton of dungeons already. Well, how many dungeons are we on? We got 5, 6, maybe 7 dungeons, I think.
Yeah, and the raids just keep coming like just as quick, don't they?
Yeah.
The only thing I think with all of that content would be nice is if obviously we've got the challenge mode and you've got achievements to get, etc. So for anyone that doesn't know, the dungeons start on a normal level, then elite, then challenge. Each one progressively gets harder, with challenge sort of being the hardest. For you to get your top gear, you have to complete them all on sort of elite difficulty. But I kind of feel like the game's been out for 2 weeks, like at the point of this recording, and we've done it all. Like, we don't need to do them dungeons anymore. We don't need to do them raids anymore. We don't need, like, we've kind of done it all. And it's, yes, there's been one raid so far, which was the scientist one, which was, people keep saying it wasn't difficult, but if it wasn't difficult, we wouldn't keep dying. Like, some people found it difficult. But like, it just feels as if it's a little bit too easy to get everything from it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
you again, I'm going to use World of Warcraft as an example, but you know, I wouldn't want it to go to this extent where you would run a raid on World of Warcraft. It'll take you 3 hours to complete the raid, and the item that drops off the boss will be you're playing as a mage, for instance, and it drops a hunter's bow, and then you're locked out of that raid for another week until you can then try and run it again. I wouldn't want it to that extent, because you know, some of that can get really tedious, and I had it in the past where I was sort of running the same raid over and over and over again, multiple times, 10 times, you know, if not more, and I was still waiting for that item to drop. So I wouldn't want to get to that extent, but I do feel like, yes, it's really nice that you can get your gear and you can get it fast and you can progress and you can enjoy the content and you can enjoy everything that's coming. But at the same time, it would be nice to have a little bit of a challenge and a little bit more of a luck draw to that item being dropped. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah. So for anyone who's not played it, when you go into like the raids or the elite dungeons or whatever, the nice thing is the game tells you what the drops are, and the drops are per player, so you don't have to share the loot between you, or, you know, I want that one drop, you can't have it. So that's also a nice thing, whether you prefer that or the old fashioned thing like in World of Warcraft. So yes, the good thing is it'll say, right, you go into this raid, if you complete it, you will drop, or you have the potential to drop, either the shoulders, you know, the helmet or the boots, right? So you know what you're going in there for. So for example, if you've already got max the best boots, shoulders and helmet, you know you don't actually have to technically do that raid. But where it then becomes slightly randomized is once you obviously complete the final boss, you open up a chest. In most of them, not all, but in most of them, it'll show you the 3 options, and then you press confirm and it'll just drop you one of them. In specific raids, you can hand pick which piece of gear you want, which is nice. And then the point then is you redo the dungeon again, and you hope that you get the helmet next time, or you hope you get the boots next time. And then anything you don't, you get these dungeon tokens, and you can go into like the in-game store, not pay to win or anything like this. It's all in-game. And then, so say if you're missing the boots, you can just straight up roll the boots. Or if you roll the boots from the dungeon and they don't have the attributes on there that you want, you can go in with your tokens, go and roll some boots again, or in your next dungeon run, you might just get boots again. And then it's a temperance system, which we can talk about maybe later on. So basically, yeah, it's all specified loot. You know what you're going to get before you go in there. The only luck bit comes in is, let's say you've only got 2 raid runs that day, and then you run out of your loot runs. You might get the helmet twice, and you didn't get your boots. You then get tokens where you can go and roll your boots from the store, but it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of luck played in there where you could get a little bit unlucky, or you could get incredibly lucky, and then therefore you can, you know, temper your gear a lot and stuff like that. What do you prefer then, since you played World of Warcraft for a while? Do you prefer the WoW way of doing it, like the older-fashioned way, or do you prefer this new, you know what you're going to get, you're not going to waste your time?
I'd like a bit in the middle. When I finished playing WoW, I played a game called Neverwinter, which I don't know, again, I don't know if you've ever played it or seen it or anything like that, but Neverwinter used to play very similar to Tarisland, like in terms of now it plays exactly like Tarisland. You go to the dungeon and you know exactly what piece of gear you're going to get at the end of it. Before, it used to play slightly differently. So all the dungeons were like staggered gear drops depending on... So like you'd have one dungeon drop for a healer and a tank, and the other dungeon would drop for a damage dealer, and like so on and so forth. But the way that they staggered it would give you reason for every class to go and play every dungeon. So... Again, it made it replayable. It made it so that it might take you 5-10 attempts at a dungeon before you get all your gear, but it kept you playing it. Whereas I do feel with this, like, you end up doing it just for the sake of doing it. Does it make sense? Like, you know, the raids all reset yesterday, and we just went through and played all the old raids for the sake of playing them. Like, we didn't need to do it. We didn't, you know, there's no benefit for us doing it. So I like both ways. It's nice because you can get your gear and you can get it done quick. And, you know, for someone who doesn't necessarily have endless amounts of hours to play games like I used to when I was a kid, like, you don't feel you need to sit and grind your way through the dungeons, raids, arcane content, etc. to be able to keep up. You can get it quite quickly playing a couple of days a week. So I don't know. I mean, I'm happy with the way the game's going currently, and I do like the way the game plays out now. But at the same time, would it be nice if it was a little bit more challenging, or would it be nice if like a raid wasn't you just spawning into a room where the boss was, and you had to do a couple of mini bosses on your way through, or something like that? Like, yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to sort of say. What direction I'd want that to go in. Do you have a for or against, or are you sort of on the fence as well?
Yeah, so I think MMOs should be built for absolute sweaty nerds who can play for 10, 12, 14 hours a day and just play as much as they can, and it's just endless content, right? However, I can't do that. Similar to you, I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? I work here Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. Do you know what I mean? We got kids that we look after as well, obviously, between me and my girlfriend. So I don't have the endless time. I can't work out whether this game has built the content around, you know, what they call nowadays gamer dads, or whether it's the Chinese model, because obviously it's Chinese development, and in China they don't basically want their kids playing games 24/7. In fact, they turn off PvP at midnight, for example. Do you know what I mean? They only let the 3v3 arena is a little bit different. I don't know what they're doing with that, with the time gating, but and there's a certain amount of runs you can do every day, even if you subscribe to the game with in-game gold or real money. There's only a certain amount of dungeon runs you can do a day before you stop getting rewards. You can still run a dungeon, You just don't get your rewards. So if you want to help out your friends, you can do. So they don't physically stop you from doing the content, but they kind of make it to a point where they're going, you don't really need to carry on playing this game anymore, do you? And I'm just trying to work out, have they designed it around the gamer dad model, or have they designed it around, it's a Chinese, company that's created it. They don't actually want you playing their game 24/7. We can also mention the time gate content as well, which would have put off a lot of people. People thought it was like a typical mobile game where you play day one on your mobile. Today, even though the game's out for 2 weeks, they thought, oh, you can only play to level 20 on day one, then you got to wait till tomorrow, or buy coins to carry on. They thought it was that kind of model, and it's not. It's just basically, the game is kind of like saying, look, here's a bunch of content that you can play for maybe 3-4 hours on one per character a day. After that, it's up to you, mate. You don't have to carry on playing. You don't have to make a second character or a third character and do all that content again. We're happy for you to come back to our game tomorrow when we reset all this content, or we bring this new raid, or we bring this new dungeon, or we increase the difficulty. Like you said, you've got normal mode, elite mode, challenge mode, rewards for all different modes, which is great. And I think there's another one. Isn't there one more mode coming? An increased difficulty in a few days, I think.
Yeah, it's like, is it epic mode?
Epic mode, yeah. Again, this to me is just that music to our ears. So yeah, is the harder content going to be coming? Like you said before, it's a bit too easy. Hopefully. One thing I would say though, if you go into a 10-man raid with no friends, no microphones turned on, 9 random players, and it's like challenge mode or elite mode, I see wipes. I see wipes all the time.
Yeah, you're never going to complete it. You're never going to get through it. It's you do need the communication when it comes to doing the harder, sort of the harder content that are currently there. So I can only imagine when Epic comes, it's going to be
fun,
even more so.
Spicy at least.
Yeah.
What do you think about the in-game built-in guides for the dungeons and raids? Do you think they're any good, or?
Again, it's nice to see it, but that's part of the fun, right? It's the part of the fun is learning and, almost becoming a bit of a roguelike game. Like every attempt, you learn a little bit more, and you learn a little bit more until you finally do it. So yeah, it's nice to have the guides and it, but at the same time, it'd be nice to just allow us to find it ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know the experiences that you've had in the past or anything like that, but I've had it loads of times, where you're running a certain dungeon or raid, for instance, and you're running it over and over and over again because you cannot work out what the mechanic is, or you cannot work out but that's part of it, and that's part of the fun, and it sort of adds to that longevity of gameplay that you might not get it today, but you may get it tomorrow or the day after that, or even a week later. So you're a week in and you've only then completed one raid. So the game, that gives itself longevity, but at the same time, it is nice to be able to read over some of the stuff, and which I found a lot of it, I've not had to read over too much of it because it's like the mechanics are very similar to mechanics that I've played in previous games. So you can almost pick it up and guess it as you go. And again, I've not done any dungeons or raiding or anything like that in New World, so I don't know what the mechanics are like in that game, but I don't know if it crosses over or not. I have no idea.
Basically, no. And I don't want to trash out New World because I fucking love that game, and I hope it gets better one day. But in a very, very quick comparison, there's dungeons in New World where you stand still and you fight away, and once every 45 seconds, you might do a dodge, pretty much. And if anybody knows, if anyone's watching this video, for example, you can comment down below. I'm sure you'll know exactly what boss I'm talking about. You barely do anything. Like, the mechanics are so small. And in this game, some of the mechanics are very repeatable, and it's got the built-in system where you don't need mods or anything. It tells you that there's going to be a dodge mechanic coming up. Even if it's not technically for you, I've noticed that in the raids, it'll say, get ready to dodge. And it's not even aimed at you. It's just aimed at somebody in the raid is going to have to dodge soon. And then obviously you get your circles, you got to run out of them, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a fan. I love playing it because compared to the games I played recently, the amount of mechanics is so good. Like when we first played challenge mode and there's 4 different colors and you're all like, the purple one means you got to jump. But I'm like, what do you mean? That's gray. And there's all just stuff going on. It's fun. Like there's just so many mechanics compared to the games I played recently. But I don't know if you've got any specific ones that you hate or like in the dungeons and raids.
I'm trying to think. No, not really. Like, one of them that is nice is the newest raid. I can't think what it's called. The Earth, the Son of Earth, or the Earth Son, or something. The Gemini one, where you have to kill the 2 bosses at the same time. It just takes me back a little bit to there was a raid in World of Warcraft Tarisland where you'd go up on a stage in like a theatre set, and when the curtain opened, there was like a chance of getting one of 3 bosses. You didn't know what one you were going to get. You either got Romeo and Juliet, Wizard of Oz, and Little Red Riding Hood, I think it was. But Romeo and Juliet was very much similar to the way that this new boss plays out. Like, they weren't allowed to be close to each other, and you had to kill them at the same time. If you killed one too soon, the other one would start healing it, or it'd resurrect it, or do you know? So it's very similar. So it sort of almost took me back a little bit to what I've played in the past, and sort of a bit of a nostalgia hit. So that was pretty cool. And I would probably say that is probably my favorite raid out there currently. I think, yeah, I would say that probably is my favorite one. And have you got any that stand out for you?
I think the visuals of the very first one you do, that Library of Chaos, I think that's pretty cool. Once you go past the first boss and you've done the sheep thing and all that kind of stuff, you open up into this kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a solar system, and there's like this huge stuff in the background. And I think visually wise, that one looks really, really good. It's not very difficult, of course, but then, but to be honest, most of them because so basically the game has like a set amount of mechanics. There's quite a few set amount of mechanics, maybe like 20 for example, but like some of them are repeated in various different combinations. So like your dodge mechanic is the same, you know, someone's gonna pop on the floor, move out of it, and then you've got the share the DMG, you know what I mean, you know, all to jump in the white circle and stuff. But so in terms of mechanics and like the funness of the dungeons and to me the difficulty is whether you understand what you're doing or not, and then does the rest of your raid or group understand. If nobody understands what the mechanics mean, like I've seen share the DMG pop up, and I've seen people run away from me, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get in the circle and get in it now. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's where the difficulty comes in, is the understanding of the mechanics. If people decide to use those in-game guides or not. Or they just pick it up over time. Like, to me, if something says dodge, you know to move out of it. If someone says share the damage, you kind of think, should we group up for this one? So yeah, that's where difficulty comes in this game, which is quite fun. And I have seen runs where we've started it, the raids especially, it's gone absolutely terrible, and then the little raid leaders typing away in chat 3 or 4 different sort of like commands to do and to follow, mechanics, and then we've done it. We completed it in the end. And then
we had that yesterday, didn't we? You know, when we were doing the Earth God one, and I was sort of shouting split and stuff, and you sort of said people didn't quite realise what was being said to start off with, but once they then understood what was happening, it made total sense. Yeah,
we got through it in the end.
Yeah, so yeah, it's but all the like dungeons, raids, arcane content and stuff, it is all fun and it is all enjoyable, and visually it looks good, and I think there is time being put into what is being given to us. But like I say, for me, it's just more the items that you receive from doing them can at times feel a little bit too easy to get.
Yeah. Because like you said, you got that rewarding system. I mean, if you personally, you're going in for your helmet, your chest, and your gloves, and you just get 3 helmets, and that's the only 3 runs you can do that day. You also get your token, so you can go and roll from the shop the missing pieces. So yeah, it is a bit too easy to get it. You could get incredibly unlucky, but the difference between getting really lucky and really unlucky is not that much. It's just re-rolling a few pieces of gear, isn't it, to see if you can get better attributes or whatever. But yeah, all in all, I'm a massive fan of all the PvE dungeons, the raids, the arcane floors, even the I know we not spoke too much about the Universal Hall. For anyone who doesn't know, once every 2 days, I think it resets. You get to fight one boss. There's 5 different levels. Each level you need to upgrade your score before you can enter, and or the difficulty, and you get to hand pick which perks or debuffs or buffs for the boss or whatever that you want. So you can customize that to yourself. If you think you're not taking much damage, increase the boss's damage, whatever. It's actually really fun, and it's just some chill content to play for. Maybe it depends how difficult you find it, for maybe 15 minutes maybe. If you find it difficult, you could be in there for an hour or 2. I've heard stories about that, but it's nice to have some solo dungeon content in there as well, with some okayish rewards. But all in all, I play just to round this one off, I play MMOs for this kind of content, and the fact that they're throwing a new dungeon or raid at us basically almost either every day or every other day, and then on days they don't give us a new raid, the older raids get increased in difficulty with new rewards and new mechanics. I'm a massive fan. But yeah, like you said, if if some of the gear was a little bit harder to get, where you're like, oh shit, this guy's got that piece of gear. Oh my god, this must be a good player or a big grinder. I think that'd be pretty good.